Without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. You know, these are guys of our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, black child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow.
What do you do after you read? What do you do after you know all, right? And you can say that you're truly conscious. How are you putting what you know into action?
This is the Initiative radio show, shifting the paradigm through conversation on any and everything relating to our communities and culture. Now introducing your new girl, Jasmine Renee.
Hey, oh, there I am. Hey, good morning. Clearly was not getting ready because the mic is not. Somebody short was in, I think it was Jackie, was in the studio yesterday, clearly, because the mic is way lower than what it normally is. But, good morning, happy Saturday. I am back. I was not in the studio last weekend because I was in DC. I had a really good time. I was not able to see the African American Museum, but I did go to it, of course, because I'm extra and took pictures in front of it. Went to the King Memorial and saw a lot of white people. Saw more white people than I'm used to. I actually saw a lot of Make America Great Again merchandise. My goodness. I haven't seen a store in LA that sells Make America Great Again merch. And every store seemed to have it, like a beanie or a shirt. We saw like caravans of people wearing like the red shirts and red hats. So that was different. Washington, D.C. definitely feels like racism. Not like in a like, oh my gosh, it was just so bad, but it was just like, ugh, like this is what it feels like. Like, why do you guys like being in this atmosphere? Like, why do you guys like being racist or whatever? And not every white person out there is racist, but it just was different. Yeah. It was one thing that I did post is there's such a stillness out there, and I was like, it's kind of dangerous because for the place that affects our country the most to have this persona of being just still as if everything is okay, it's like, what's really going on? So that was something that, you know, I took from the trip. I definitely did miss being on the mic and being in the studio. But yeah, so that was that. It was very cold. But I enjoyed it. It did rain and it snowed. I've never been anywhere while it was actually snowing. And the first day I got there, it was actually snowing, which was so cool. I was like, yes, touch my natural hair and hit my skin, like, you know, all of that special stuff. My first hour, I was in the airport for a few hours because I couldn't get into my hotel until check-in, and I got there early in the morning. So my first hour out of the airport, I get in the Uber, and there's this Arabian man, maybe, or Ethiopian. There's a lot of Ethiopians out there. I think he was Ethiopian. An Ethiopian man driving the Uber, and there's a white man in the car. And, you know, I see white man, so I'm like, let me sit in the front. And I couldn't sit in the front because there was something in the front seat, so I have to sit in the back by the white man. And sure enough, he was like, just had so much rage. And I don't know what had happened before I had got in the car, but I literally got in the car. The driver drove for maybe about 5 minutes, and this dude is on the left of me yelling. I thought he was going to like punch me. He was so mad. I was like, okay, I'm either going to have to like get out the car or something's going to happen, or this is going to be on the news, because I was just like, I could feel his like rage, and it just was uncomfortable. Like, to be in the back seat with somebody, and granted, like, the middle seat is not super big. Like, it was just a regular like 4-door car, and I literally could just feel his like anger, and I was just like, okay, this is uncomfortable. But he's yelling. He was yelling, and like the car is small, so his yell is like literally filling up the car, and I was just like, who? And usually I would have said something because he was being very disrespectful, but I said, I'm in a new place. I'm just gonna sit here. So I sat there, and he yelled again. And I had to like look out the window and just close my eyes, like, Lord Jesus, yeah, I can't do this. So he ended up getting out in the middle of the street, basically, and he like slammed the door so hard I thought the dude's window was gonna break. Yeah. But somehow, some way, black women get stuck with the angry black woman stigma. So, yes, that was my first hour in DC, but the rest was okay. It wasn't too bad. I didn't get to talk to Trump about the shutdown. Yeah, so, but it's over for at least 3 weeks. So yeah, that's that. But anyways, I have a special guest. Shout out to Keith. He's in the chat box. It's good to see you, or good to see that you're commenting, Keith. But I have a special guest. Shakira is here. Hello. If anyone listened to the podcast maybe about 3 weeks ago, she was with me on the trip where there was a few, it was 7 ladies, and we went on the Joshua Tree retreat with Kamari, who wrote the book Right Back to You. And we did some workshopping. We did some affirmation baths. We did some like praying and worship and all of that. So I met her maybe not a year ago.
I think about a year. Maybe.
It's been, yeah. Well, I met Kamari in like March. So I had to meet you shortly after. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was in March because it was the first time I saw you perform was at the World Stage Press for the women's event, and I believe it was during March because March is like Women's History Month or something. So yeah, I heard her perform the piece. I believe it's My Ancestors Told Me to Write This, and literally those like lines, and I've never seen Shakira before, and I honestly wouldn't have been able to point her out after like seeing her perform. It just really stuck with me, and I think I followed you maybe a little time after on Instagram, and I remember like looking at the video because you have a video up of it. And I was just like listening to it, and I'm like, it just resonated with me in a way. Like I was just like, oh, okay, like this is a really dope piece. And it's just something where it was very true to like feelings, even how you said like the roof of my mouth feels like cotton fields or something. And I'm like, dang, and you were like only I think a descendant of like a slave or something could say something like that. And it's like, don't think you could put this shit in your poems. Like that is only for us. Like we have things that are solely for us. But I just love that about her. And when we were in Joshua Tree, everybody talks about Joshua Tree. Like somebody was doing a radio show here, and I'm listening live, and they were like, "You're just living your best life in Joshua Tree and stuff." And it was like on Tuesday, and I'm like, it's a month later, and people are like talking about it. So I think people like they are able to see how much it affected us. And I think even sometimes maybe we came back and affected other people. But it was just such a dope time. Me and Shakira definitely, or not definitely, like it was supposed to happen, but we built a very strong bond without like doing any work at all. And just kind of like got super close. And I'm like super excited because I was definitely a fan of hers, and it's like, you know, Beyonce and stuff, and you're like, oh, and then you become best friends with Beyonce, and you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, let's do it, know?
I'll take it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those feelings, like you really, like, you love her music, you love her art and all of that, and then all of a sudden, like, you have access to her, and like, the mind that has produced this book, so it was like one of those things. Yeah, so I'm very happy to have her in the studio. Even if she wasn't like my best friend, I'll be happy to have her in the studio. But it's more special to have her, like, to be able to like bring people that I genuinely love, like, on the platform. Not that I didn't genuinely love the other guests, but I'm just saying Shakira's dope.
Just saying.
Right. So yeah, tell us a little bit about Shakira.
Oh, okay. My name is Shakira. I'm 25 years young. I'm an Aquarius.
Yes.
That's how I always start off my intros. No, but I'm Shakira. I just published my very first book.
Yes.
It's called The Letting of a Little Water. It's a book of poems and Polaroids. So each poem has a Polaroid that I either took that inspired the poem, or I wrote the poem and went to find a picture to match it.
Right.
It was published by World Stage Press.
Shout out to World Stage.
Man, they do so much for the community.
Yeah, I love it.
It was published by World Stage Press on the 16th. Yeah.
Yes, and I was there. So
you were there.
The book release.
In the front row.
Yes, I was in the front row.
I
had to be.
appreciated that.
I had to be. I had no choice. I had to be there in the front row. But being there, so I mean, I guess you can backtrack, because I was telling the girls on the retreat, for some reason I would not have been able to recognize you. I never did recognize you. And even like when you did your poem, my ancestors told me to write this back, I believe it was in March. I couldn't, like, if I would have seen you walking, and even after the show, the only reason why I knew to come up to you, because I think I did, is because of your hair. But we sat and I looked you in your face and I was like, hey, follow me, like I'm having an event, whatever. Yeah. And then you ended up coming to the event, but I did not recognize you, because when you're up on stage, like, and it's not that you're a completely different person, but I think you really listen to your words. And I think like that first poem really just touched me in a way where I was just like thinking about what you were saying, and I never really looked at you. So I'm like, when you came to the event, if you would have did your poem, I would have been like, oh, that's the girl. Yeah. But it, like, I didn't see you at all. And when I do events, I really try to come and speak to everybody, you know, just because, like, it's community. So how can you have a community event if you're not trying to speak to the community? So I tried to, I think you, maybe on Twitter, you were like,
I think I on Instagram, I DM'd you.
Yeah, something. And you were like, I was there. And I'm like, I was shook. I'm like, you were there. I was like, why didn't you perform? And I don't remember what you said.
You was just so busy. Like, I remember I got there. I was with my boyfriend at the time. And I remember just, like, sitting there, and it was just so packed. And I, like, saw you running around and moving around. And I was like, nah, I think I'm going to just let her.
You should have said hi.
There was just so many people. I was like, I'm going to let her do her. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, I'll hit her up and tell her I came.
Okay. And I really appreciated that, because it was special just to be like, oh, yeah, you know, I came, and like, it wasn't something where you were like, had to come up to me and be like, yo, I'm here driving or whatever. Like, you came and you didn't even perform, and my goodness, you should have, but you didn't even perform. You just came to like enjoy. So I really appreciated that. And I think I saw you perform again more recently at, the book release for, it had fire on it. The book had like fire in the sky or something. RJ told me about it, and he had a poem in the book. But yes, I recently saw you perform there, but I don't think I reached out to you then. I didn't say anything to you then. I was just talking to Kamari, and then yeah, Kamari told me you were going on the retreat, and I was like, oh, that's dope. And I think I messaged you like, is it okay if we share rooms? You were like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, it was just cool to see like how things worked out. And I think it was good that we didn't connect like on just a regular like, hey, how you doing level, because it may have like been a hey, how you doing level when we went to Joshua Tree. So it kind of was like we really got to experience each other new.
I really feel like everything just happened for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy to say that. Like, people say that all the time. It's so cliche.
Yeah.
But I really feel like our story, at least, like, because we just knew of each other. And, like, if you would have told me back in March that we would have the connection we have now, I would be like, what?
Like, how?
No. I don't make friends. Like what? No.
Right. Kamari's in the chat box. Hey, Kamari. She said hi. That was the extreme book release. Yes. You can't hear Shakira.
My voice as well.
Okay. What about now?
Hello. Oh, I can hear myself now.
Okay. So yeah, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, yeah. So the extreme book release where. RJ was the one that invited me out to that, and I saw Kamari. Me and Kamari, that was actually when me and Kamari connected for Kamari to come on the show. And I'm just, everybody is just a blessing. Like, I was with Ayana last night, and I was just like, it's so cool just to have genuine connection with all of us that went. And I was telling her, I think I had talked to everybody individually like last week. And not like, oh, let me hit up Milena, let me hit up Kamari, but like, just, I think Milena had posted something that was like just amazing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cute, or whatever. I had hit up Brittany and was like, I miss you so much, and then we talk all the time, and I'm always bothering Kamari.
I love it.
So that's that. And then me and Deja D were able to have a conversation. We were able to have a conversation, of just encouragement, and she had sent me some things that she had wrote, and we, just kind of, I talked to everybody. So I'm really excited about that. But let us know about the process of your book. Did you start your process with CLI? Or was it something that let's talk about CLI.
Okay, so CLI stands for Community Literature Initiative. They have a publishing class that they offer at USC, and I believe it's 10 weeks. And for 10 weeks, you go to USC every Monday night from 6 to 9, and you basically just enter like a cubicle of like art. Like, you just write. And it was through CLI that I completed my manuscript for my book. I was always writing, like I always was writing poetry, but I wasn't creating a project or anything. I was just like writing at random, and CLI kind of gave me structure.
Right.
But so you finish the 10-week, and then you have if you finish your manuscript, you participate in an author draft where you perform or you like showcase your manuscript to a room full of small presses, and you get offers, hopefully. And you get a chance to publish your book, which I think is just amazing. I don't know where I would be if I didn't find CLI, honestly.
And tell me about what was like the entry point for you, or what made you say like, I need to do CLI? Like, what was that transition like for you?
It seems like thinking, like when I look back on it, it feels like it just happened like ABC. Like, you know how when you look back, like it was like I did this, and like that. But really, I was just like, I say this all the time when like I share my story, but I was just like in such a dark place. Like, I was just like, I literally wanted to kill myself. Like, wrote a suicide letter and all of that. Like, I was done.
Wow.
And I wrote myself out of that. Like, I wrote a poem that brought me out of that, and I took that poem. And I was going to Cal State Long Beach at the time, and they had an open mic, and it was my first. I'd never done an open mic before. I think I was like a junior in college, and I never done an open mic before. And I saw a flyer on the ground. Like, I just picked up a flyer, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" And I ended up going after work one day, and like, I'm shy now, but back then I was like a hermit. Like, I wouldn't even like look people in the eye.
Right.
But something just told me like, sign up. So I signed up, and I shared my poem, and I remember like 10 people came up to me afterwards, like crying, like, thank you for sharing your story, or like, my brother went through that. And I was just like, wow, like, it felt so good to like, not for somebody to not only like your work, but to be like
affected.
Yeah, like affected. And like, it really made me feel like, okay, I'm not alone. And so then after that, I went home and I was literally Googling like open mics within my area, because I didn't want to just go to Cal State Long Beach.
Right.
And I found the World Stage. And then I went there the next Wednesday night. I went there, and I shared the same poem, got the same response. And then I just kept going back. And eventually I heard Hiram go up there once, Hiram Sims. And he was talking about CLI, and I was like, what is this CLI thing? And I talked to him afterwards, and he was telling me about it. And then I applied and interviewed and got in, and it all happened from there.
That's dope. Somebody in the comments, Hope, I think that's Shaloa, said on the community literature. Oh, the community literature sounds cool. Was it expensive? Yeah.
It does. I mean, it's not free. It's $100 a month for 10 weeks. So I think it comes about $1,000.
Right.
But I mean, in my eyes, that's not expensive. Like $100 a month, I probably spend that on coffee or like In-N-Out or something. Like it's really like truly a good investment. I spend $100 a month, and I literally have a book like sitting right in front of me right now. So.
And that's dope. And what you said, like for it to happen like back to back, I think that's such a cool thing. And you like telling the story.
Oh, 10 months. My bad. I said 10 weeks. It's 10 months.
You
I saw
said-
Kamari. I
you
did
said
that
10
last
weeks
time.
Last time too.
10 months. My bad.
But yeah, just to see like, to hear you, like you said, tell your story like it went boom, boom, boom. But it just sounds like what you just said. It's something that was supposed to happen.
Exactly.
Like you're supposed to see the flyer. You're supposed to like.
Exactly.
And how often is it that you look on the internet for something that's happening in the community and you
it
find
pops up?
something?
Exactly.
Yeah, and especially finding something like World Stage, because I didn't know about World Stage until I met Kamari. And I knew RJ. And I would always see RJ posting, "Oh, I'm going to class. I'm going to class at USC." And I'm like, "What are you doing, RJ?" You know, like, I mean, not like it was a bad thing, but I was just like,
"What are you up to?"
He's always in class or whatever. So yeah, I definitely enjoy like hearing those things, and then to like not interview you while you're in the process, but to have like the book, like to look at, to have been to like the book release, and then to have like experienced your poems and stuff. But just wait, Kamari's in the comments. Kamari says she was there when Shakira first went to the stage. I literally said she's gonna be my friend. Oh, you're not a creeper. She said I'm a creeper. You're not a creeper. We all did that.
I'm glad you became my friend, Kamari. I love you.
We're going to see Kamari tomorrow.
I can't wait.
We're going to try not to be super mushy because it's going to turn into that.
I know.
It really is. But this is to help you guys learn more about Shakira and learn more about her book and the dope book release that she had. But yeah, if you are just now tuning in, I'm in the studio, your girl Jasmine Renee, at the Good News radio station, bringing to you the Initiative radio show with Shakira Peterson. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about my favorite poem. That's my favorite poem. Your ancestors told you to write this. That is like such a testament. And I think there was a part where you were like, I didn't realize this when you were saying it, but when I read it, at the end, you were kind of like, they promised me they were okay. And then they gave you the book or your journal to write in. And I was just like, wow. You know, like, oh, they told you that. Like, they're okay. They promised you they're okay. But it's not like a thing, like, you know how you read it, you're like, oh, that was a good line. But like when you because I read it, it was just like, it really did feel like, oh, okay, like that was really a message. Like you're the messenger, kind of. So how did that come about, writing that piece?
Man, I just remember like for a very long time, I've always felt like, you know how you just feel like angered at something or like something was bothering me and I just like couldn't get it out. And that's usually how most of my poems come about. It's just like me really just sitting with myself and being like, why are you feeling this way? And I remember like that was probably during the time when it was just like, you know, well, it's always like that, when it was just like a lot of like, I got tired of like watching people that look like me die on TV and like it just took me back to like, damn, like my ancestors went through all this shit and like here we are again, like going through it. And I was just like, remember thinking about all of that. And then like me and my mom talk all the time about like her mother and like her mother's mother. My dad talks about his mother and just like the trials that they went through. And I just like remember thinking like, man, I hope they're okay now. Like, cause you know, if they go through so much, like our ancestors went through so much for us to be here. And then I remember just sitting like thinking like, I hope they're okay now. And that one sentence turned into that poem.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you talk about your ancestors, I went to a different poem, but you talk about your mom's mom and your grandmother, and you wrote the poem Heavenly Flowers.
Heavenly Flowers.
Heavenly Flowers. So because I remember right before the retreat, my mom's listening. Hey, Mom.
Mom.
Right before the retreat, you had posted something, and I was like, how dope is that like what you posted is very dear to my heart because of my grandmother. And you had posted like you wish that she was here. Yeah, like during your adulthood or whatever. And I didn't even know that you had that poem in the book. So what was that like, bringing that up, the Heavenly Flowers poem?
Man. I believe my grandmother passed away in 2010, and I think I was in high school, but I was so young when she was around, and I just feel like as an adult now, like as a 25-year-old Black woman, I feel like there is so much knowledge and just so much I could have gotten from her now
Right.
that I just wasn't aware existed when I was younger.
Right.
And so she's always on my mind. Like, I'm always thinking, like, I hope I grew into the women you thought I would grow into. And, like, you know, and just my mom, my mom and her mom, my grandma was really close. So my mom told me all the time, like, you know, she loves you. Like, she's here. Her spirit is here. And I believe her, but I just can't. I just wish and just hope that, like, I could just talk to her one more time. Like, look, grandma, like, because I like in the poem, I think I said that, like, the shy girl who never said a word now has a book full of them. Because I was so quiet around her. I was just quiet. I was just a quiet little girl, and I just want to show her, like, look what I did now.
But that's a real feeling. Just wondering, like, because how would they react during your adulthood,
exactly.
you know?
It just
and
could've been
just like,
different.
yeah, but like you take it for granted because you have so many people that have experienced you in your adulthood. But just like, how would they deal with you? Would you be able to still sit in their lap or like, you know,
like, what would that relationship be
could
like?
you come and be like, girl, like, guess what, you know?
I know. I always wonder, like, would I be like, instead of going straight home, would I just like, well, I'm going to grandma's house real quick and just like chill with her or do some puzzles or something. You know?
Right.
I
So
think
yeah,
about that all the time.
those are real feelings. But like you had posted that, I think right before the retreat, and it was just like a real, you know, moment. I think it was just like we shared like 2 messages back and forth. But I was just like, no one, you know, has ever really said that. And then to see the poem, and you were just like, you know, did you and God have a hand in like basically like helping me with this?
my life?
Yeah, or like, are you sitting with God and being like, you know, is this for me or is this for me? I think that's like a real feeling because I've often like wondered like, what would it be like? Or like, you know, are you looking down on me? Or like, is what I'm doing, is it proud? You know, are you proud and stuff? So that's definitely something that I really did enjoy about the poem. And I was like, I think I posted on Facebook, like, if I could write or put into words just how I felt, like that's really just something. And it's like, it's not even, I mean, it could be like, okay, yeah, I miss you, but it's just, I just want to know what it would be like now. You know, and it's not like, you know, I'm just yearning for the old grandma, but I want to know like what is it would have been. Yeah, with me being 23, like how would you interact with me? How would you, you know, grow along with being my grandmother? And I was her oldest, so it's just like, you know, I would have literally seen her growth as a grandmother. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, especially like when me and my mom hang out all the time. Like we always go into the mall and stuff. Friends. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, what if every time we're hanging out, I'm like, you think grandma out here right now? Like,
Aww.
I always wishing she was just right here. I remember when she passed away, my brother had shared something with me. He said that one time he was laying on her chest, like on my grandma's chest, and they had noticed that their heartbeat was like beating at the same rhythm. Oh. And I remember being so jealous, like, like why didn't I have that? Like, you know, and that's something that used to really bother me. But like, I just like, I didn't even think about like the impact she probably had on millions of like hundreds of people outside of me. Like, and that even just fills me up with so much love. Like,
yeah, there are definitely a lot of people. There's a lot of, not so much now, more so closer to when she passed that. People would ask because, of course, you know, you can't. Facebook wasn't a thing then, so like there was up into a time where maybe a few years ago, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, somebody had asked about her, like, but they hadn't seen us in a long time, and I don't really post about her unless like I don't know, I don't really post about her. But they had asked, like, you know, oh, your grandmother is Sherry or whatever. Like, you know, you're so-and-so's niece or whatever. How is she doing? And I was like, oh, she passed away or whatever. But, you know, that was probably the last time, like, I really, like, spoke about her. And I remember one time my uncle, he found a video of her and my godmother. And they both passed and they were best friends. So I lost my godmother in high school and I lost my grandmother when I was elementary. And I think they were both on, I forgot what the show is called. It was the show, like, they wear costumes sometimes, and it's like
Let's Make a Deal?
Yes.
The Price is Right, or both?
The Price is Right, maybe.
Because The Price is Right is, like, older.
The Price is Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, they were on that show, and they ended up going on, or my grandmother went up, and you could hear her voice, and it was on YouTube. And I remember sitting in the back of our church, and I think he had sent a link or something, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I, like, just exited out of it really quick because you know, you never realize the voice. I haven't heard that voice in so long, and I was just like, it makes you want to like go back to it. And I was just like, I don't want to watch this, like, and not in a bad way, but it was just like, you know, it was one of those things. But yeah, like that was probably the last time I like heard her.
I remember before she passed away, she had left my mom a voicemail saying like, "Oh, I love you. Don't forget to bring something," or something like that. And my mom had it on her phone forever, and we had to like, I think we like changed from like Verizon to Sprint or something. We had to go to the store, and like they told her we can't keep the voicemail. And I remember her breaking down in Sprint. Like I was so young though, I couldn't really comprehend like I was just, like, for me, I was probably a teenager. Like, come on, like just let's get this over with. Let's go. Like, you know. But looking back, I'm like, dang, like, because with today's technology or whatever, we could definitely, like, you seen that video where the girl, like, tattooed, like, a sound wave?
Yeah.
Like, we could have done that, like, you know?
Right.
So I'm really sad we lost that.
Yeah. That's definitely, my mom set the prices right. But yeah, that's definitely, you know, just something I think a lot of us don't talk about.
Yeah.
I think even just being like, not that I don't hate to bring race into it. You know, it just is a thing. I think a lot of times we don't get to like, you know, talk about those things.
Right,
we don't have space to, you know, talk about those things because there's so much that's going on in real time that you can't really talk about those that you miss or like ancestors or whatever. But to move on to something, I guess it's not necessarily happier, but the Happy Loves Hiding poem. Yeah, so reading that, and your poems always take like a turn. And it's not a turn, but it's like, and it's like, oh, well, we started off with oranges, now we have pizza. Yeah. So, and they're both good. But yeah, so it was just one of those things where, so going towards the end of it, you were basically like, I'm glad I found like happiness, but I'm like, I resent the fact that I'm not the source. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, like even when you find happiness, you can still be upset about it. Like, so where did that poem come from?
So I remember just like a quick crash course. I was diagnosed with depression, clinical depression. They put me on antidepressants, and sometimes I stopped taking them. And so it was like a moment when I stopped taking them, and my boyfriend at the time, bless his soul, he was dealing with me in one of my very low points. And I remember just like, I used to call off work all the time. I call them mental health days, and I had took like 2 in a row, I think. And like I had wrote this poem during that time, and I was basically just saying like, you know, I'm sad. I don't know where to look for it. Like, I'm gonna stay home today. I'm gonna take a nice shower. And I said I looked for it in the shower. It wasn't there. Right. Like I laid in bed and cuddled with my dog. It wasn't there. And then I asked him to come over, and he comes over. Like, he literally comes over. I go in his car, and like, he gives me that happiness I was looking for. Like, I hug him, I kiss him, and I'm so happy. But I was just kind of sad. Like, damn, like, why can't I give myself that? And that's something I still struggle with today, or something I'm working on today. Like, I want to be the source of my own happiness. I don't want to have to run to someone, or, you know, have to look for love. Even though that's a blessing to have. Like, it's a blessing to be loved and to have those people around you. But above all, I want to be the one to bring that happiness to me. So that's what that poem was about.
Yeah. Shout out to Kirsten. She was on the show. She's a co-host on the show that had mentioned Joshua Tree. So, hey, Kirsten. She's from Never Not Extra. On Tuesdays at, I believe, 8:30 on the Good News radio station. So if you have the app, make sure you tune in to them on Tuesdays. Okay, there was something that I did want to talk about. I have it marked, but it's not depression. It's not a sin. It's sadness. Is not a sin.
Sadness is not a sin.
Yeah. So born and raised in the church, and get on the altar has been the answer to almost every single problem that you can have.
Like, go pray about
Getting older and having my own, I've gotten in trouble because I've always been like a why person, and not a why, but does this help, or is this the answer to? And sitting in your children's class when you're, you know, in church, those are not the questions that you ask. And I always ask those questions. I had to go apologize a few times. Like, I wasn't trying to challenge you. I just really wanted to know if every time you go to the altar, were you getting fixed, or like, you know, what's up? So, and please understand, I never am denying the power of God and the ability of God, but I do understand that God is a very smart God, and he has put people on this earth to help us get through things. So there's no need for him to give anyone the ability to help someone work themselves through therapy. Why would he give someone that ability for his people not to be able to use that? I just don't think that's a thing. I don't think he does that. So I need people to like genuinely understand that, yes, prayer does work, but at the end of the day, faith without works is dead. And you have to get up off your knees and go to work, and you have to make your relationship work. You have to do well for your children. You have to make sure that you are not beating people up. And sometimes you can't sit on the altar while you're at work. You have to do something. So I think that whole sadness is not a sin. Anger is not a sin. All of those emotions are not sins, and sitting on the altar does not fix them all the time. I think that's a real thing. But where did that poem come from?
Okay, that came from like a very specific situation. I had went to Florida with some girls, some friends that I had. Yeah, and it just was a horrible trip. Mostly because like I was just in a bad space, and like I think they could feel my negative energy, and they just did it. They wasn't fucking with it, and I completely get it now. But in the moment, like and I remember one girl had came in. I just remember I was just sad, and she had came in and she had sat on the floor with me, and like she was really like there for me, and she was like telling me like I had opened up to her like I think I'm just going through like a depressive phase, and she was like, oh yeah, I've been there, and she had like, I felt like we had a moment until she said, I really think you should just pray about it. And I was just like, you don't think I've been praying? Like,
wow.
Like, you don't think
right.
I prayed already? Like,
right.
So that just really frustrated me. Like people assume like because I'm sad and because I've had like suicidal thoughts that I'm disrespecting God because he gave me this life, and and it's not even that. It's just like
those are real feelings.
It's just a real feeling, and I'm not saying, and I hate when people think like oh, talk to God about it. Like I've been talking to God about it, and God is telling me to do something else about it. So what else can I like? Tell me something else I can do.
Right.
So that's where that poem came from. Like it's not a sin for me to be sad. Like I'm not disrespecting God by being depressed. I'm just trying to live.
And I think as of this week, there's so many things that I'll be wanting to say on Facebook and Instagram, but I just don't be having the time to articulate it because I'm like, I'll be wanting to read people for filth. And I think I've been disappointed in a lot of people that are part of my village because I feel like they weren't genuine in saying and transparent in their walk, and not making it seem as if, oh, I'm just perfect, or they made it seem as if, oh, I don't do this, I don't do that. And now that people have fallen, I'm like, but y'all told me that y'all had it and y'all were good and y'all would never fall. And now that you guys are falling, I'm like, why did you teach me this way? Why did you teach me that it's perfection? Why didn't you teach me your flaws too? Why didn't you teach me not your flaws, but how did you get back up from your flaws? Why did you hide those things from me? And as an adult, I'm just getting to this point where I'm like, y'all did a disservice. And this is why a lot of people are leaving the church, because you're not being transparent. We don't care that you messed up, but we mess up too. But how did you get back up from that? And a lot of times they're not getting back up. But I just think now is like being born and raised in the church is just like, I'm getting to a point where I'm like, y'all didn't have to, nobody asked y'all to be perfect. I didn't ask you to be this person that said, oh, I just never sin and I'm just the most perfect Christian. I didn't ask for anything, but you should have taught me how to get back up, how to maintain, not how to like put on a facade. So I think that's something just growing up in the church. Like people don't deal with those things, or even, just to talk about being sad, being depressed. You don't hear about those things. It's like, oh, I'm not going to accept that. Well, you're going to, when you're not in church, when you're by yourself, you're going to have to deal with that. So like, how do I overcome it? But I just think the generations before us have did such an amazing job of sitting in the front row and sitting pretty and faking the funk for so long that a lot of us are like, okay, so y'all fake, like, was life good or was it like this? Because life is not like perfect for me right now. And I don't know. I'm tired of faking the funk. I want to know how to get back up and how to be better. But you didn't teach me that. You just showed me how to fake.
Yeah, you didn't show me the real.
Yeah, so being 23, I'm just at a point now where I'm like, y'all wild. Y'all are wild. Like, and I'm disappointed. As the little Jazz is disappointed because y'all didn't teach me how to get back up. Y'all just taught me, okay, get on the altar. And that don't work. Because clearly it's still not working for you. Because you didn't slipped up, messed up, and turned around. And I don't know where you at now.
I need to know, like, the physical things. I need to, like,
Right.
I get, like, the spiritual work. But I need to know, like, what can I do here, like,
right now
in my body,
today.
like today, in this very moment.
Because
Give
the
me
church
something
doors
to
ain't
do.
open all the time.
Exactly.
God is there, but the church doors ain't open all the time. So I just think, let's look at these comments. My mom said, take up your bed and walk. Kamari said, God is so real, but we need, I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, I can read. But I need glasses, apparently, because the screen is close to me and I cannot see the words. But we need a physical thing sometimes. We need to talk and get an audible voice back. Kamari said people pray the most when they're down, so it's rude to say pray about it. How about you pray with me? Wow, that's a good one.
Pray with me. She got in caps.
Right. Kirsten said a lot of people say pray about it because they don't know how to use their words. That's dope. Hey, what's up, Ray? And then my mom said, powerful in the pulpit. Pitiful. I can't talk. Pitiful?
Of hope.
Pitiful at home. Pitiful at home. Yeah, so those are real things. Yeah, I'm going to get glasses because I can read the book, but I can't read what's on the screen. And I do know how to read, y'all, because, but I don't know what's going on with my eyes. But, so that's a thing. I have been disappointed, and I've been trying to articulate that for Facebook because those are the people that need to read it. I have a different, like, Facebook is like church people, family, and the Instagram is like the millennial generation. So I have some things that I want to say to my Facebook followers. But yes, more comments. Key said the question is who you praying to? How are you praying? Well, I pray to God. So how do I pray? With words? That's what I was gonna say. Somebody else tweeted this week and was just like,
I saw that.
Think I should pray more.
I don't know how.
Yeah. I can't see that emoji, Mom. So before I look at Keith's comment, because he's going to take me into another conversation, but someone asked, I think I should pray more, but I don't know how to pray. And I've always, one of my good friends made that statement like years ago, and now she's like really heavily in the church. But I've always said you just talk. The same way that I'm talking to Shakira, the same way that Shakira is talking to me, you just talk and you just say things. And that's how you do it. One thing that I do have to differ is that sometimes when we pray, we're not talking to God. A lot of times when we pray, we just praying to sound good. And you got the old Father Gods and have your mighty way in my life today. And I come to you the most humbly as I know how and all of those. And in your mighty name we pray. Amen. No, like, okay, you talking to us or you talking to God? Now I've gotten to a point where I'm just like, you know what?
Like, what's up?
Yeah. Like today was wild. Like,
I'm having a rough one.
You got to come help me. At some point in time, I need help. God, like you can't leave me out there because I almost lost my cool today. But yeah, I got to a point where I'm just like, I need to really start talking to God. And I've had this kind of a prayer that I've been saying for years. And I was like, why do I keep saying the same old prayer? So I just started talking.
And
like,
a lot of times I'm like, what am I even saying? Like, what are these words that I'm using?
Yeah.
I remember, like, I was in the same place you are, and I was like, going to different Bible studies, trying to find an answer, basically. And I had went to this one Bible study, and the one thing I got out of it was like, I was asked this girl, like, how do I pray? And she was just like, what? Like, just talk to him. And that was just like a revelation to me. I'm like, what? Like,
Right.
I don't gotta use all these like formal words. I don't gotta read the prayer from the Bible. I can just
Read the prayer from the Bible.
I can just be like, hey.
No. Yes. I mean, because it's supposed to be a personal relationship. And if you don't talk to your friends that way, how can you now have this relationship with God? And what's crazy to me is he knows you more than you know yourself, in a sense. So you coming in like, oh, I got to be all proper for God. He looking at you like,
I know that ain't true.
I just saw what you did. So what are you coming in here like that for? Like, chill, just be you. So it's just one of those things. And I've gotten to a point where it's like, yes, prayer is talking to God, but I talk to God now. You know, we have like a relationship type thing. And that's something that I think I've had in my 23 years of living of, you know, my parents taught me to pray. I pray every night. I pray when I wake up in the morning. And prayer is just very cemented into who I am as a person. But I had to get to a point where my prayer like had to take a shift. Keith said, now I will get to his comment. Are you asking for things in your prayer or being grateful for the things you have and will receive?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not asking for physical things. I'm not like, God, please give me that Mercedes Benz, or, you know, but I do ask for like patience and,
right,
you know.
And I think those are things like, and I think it's a journey. And I've realized now, like in the tweet, I was just like, you know, today was wild, but we working on patience, and it's a we are. It's not just me. It's we're you know, you're walking with me on this journey too. My mom said sometimes you do not have to talk, just get in a quiet place. He already knows. Kirsten said, that's true. Kirsten said, I talk to God all day. Keith said, the answer is within. God is you. You are not a separate entity for God. Well, yes, if you believe that, Keith, and that is your belief, but some people have different beliefs. Kirsten said, most of my prayers start off with, look, God. Yeah, I mean, come on now. Look, God. We got to talk about something because I'm wilding. I'm tripping. And I need help. So those are really good key points. My mom said relationship. So those are really real. I know when I was younger. I like how she said
that most of her prayers start off with, look, God.
Right.
Because that's what I was talking to, like, look, right. God, tell me what's good.
I posted on Facebook. I was like, because I haven't really spoke about it, but I have a player on my team. And when I tell you, I don't want to say anything mean. I've been tried and tested this season since August, and me and the other coach, and like it's just been to a point where the devil is active, and I'm just like, my goodness, like how could the devil be so like active in a child? You know, like it's just one of those things. And I put on Facebook, I'm like, you know, this coaching this year, because I coached last year, this is my second year, and I was like, it was a tough assignment. And sometimes I'm like, God, I didn't have to go through this. I would have learned the lesson in an easier way. I didn't have to go through this.
God, why you put me through
and
this?
I'm just like, whoo-wee. Like, it is tough.
And that's something that, like, I would, like, I feel like that's not talked to in church. Like, they tell you, like, don't question God. Like, just take everything as is. But sometimes I'll really just be like, God, like, why? Like, why is this happening? Why? Like, you know, but in church they teach you, like, you know, don't ask questions, don't do nothing but sit there, be quiet, don't sneeze, don't yawn, like, don't do anything.
Glasses like this. But yeah, and I think even that thing of like, don't question God is like not questioning his existence, or not questioning like, you know, where, not necessarily where he came from, but just not questioning like who he is.
Right.
But I think you can ask God,
yeah,
like,
you can be honest.
Because if you don't know why you're going through something, you won't ever like going through it will not ever be of benefit to you.
Yeah.
Keith,
what do you say?
You already have everything you are asking for. God has already given it to you. Ray said, I'd be like, hey man, you already know what it is. Help. That's so real. The devil doesn't exist. There is no opposition to God. God is Keith, these are opinions. These are opinions. You can't just get on telling us what it is that you have an opinion about. I mean, you can tell us our opinions. He said the devil doesn't exist. There is no opposition to God. God is the one and only. No other entity exists except for God. The devil is a false god, figment of imagination. Like my mom said, life and death. Hey, well, what a surprise. Kirsten is here from Never Not Extra. My mom said life and death is in the power of the tongue. Sometimes God is working something out in us. If we need patience, you need to be tested. That is good. Are you not sharing your opinion? Yeah, I'm sharing my opinion, but it just seems you're telling us like what we're saying is wrong. So we weren't saying that anything is wrong. We were just talking about what we're talking about. But yeah, Keith's been in these comments heavy since the last 3 shows. Are you gonna hop on the mic, Kirsten? No. But yeah, so that's that. That kind of threw me off.
Me too. I was focused for a second.
But yes. If you're just now tuning in, and it's your girl Jasmine Renee here at the Good News Radio Station. Bringing to the Initiative Radio Show. Yes, Keith, you can share your opinion, but to be like, the devil doesn't exist, you have to word it correctly. It is, I don't even think the devil exists or something like that. It seems like you telling us like the devil doesn't exist, and you telling us that God is not separate from us. I'm just saying the way that it came off. Because, you know, if you was in the studio, we would probably understand you a little better. But you're texting. So, you know, texts get misconstrued. My mom, that's surprising. My mom said she hears you, Keith. My dad actually had a conversation. My dad actually had like a 2-hour conversation with Keith. That was interesting. Okay, we'll take your philosophies and your learnings, Keith. We're not coming for you. But yes, we started that off from Sadness Isn't a Sin, right?
Sadness isn't a sin. Yeah, that's where it all came from. Yeah,
sadness isn't a sin. Okay, so what I did want to go through, you put a chart.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the book.
I was like, you expect Polaroids and poems, and then these are like the blue pages are really special. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about it. Is the number of times you cried versus the seasons and the months. So you did basically. It's 12 months, and a year. And your lows are your low numbers of crying is in the summer, and then your highs are in the winter. You're peaking during the winter around this time. So tell us a little bit about why you felt it was important to put this in the book.
I really wanted just to touch on the topic of seasonal depression and how like that's a real thing. Like in the summer there's sun and like it really does affect how you feel, like you know. But during like the darker months, like winter, when it's raining, or like when it's cloudy, when it's foggy, like that really affects my mood. And so I just wanted to create a chart to like show people like this is a real thing. Like I cry a lot more, you know, when the sun is in the sky than when it is. So I just did a chart to kind of just show like the highs and lows that I go through throughout the months.
And how did you chart it?
So usually I keep a journal. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of like went through the journal randomly when I was like preparing to make the book. I like went through the journal randomly trying to see like, and I could just tell based on what I wrote. So like in the summer, that's when I wrote my happier poems, like when I was more confident in my words. And then during the winter, the poems would be like, you know, very just like, I wouldn't say sad, but just like solemn and like very like melancholy and like, and so I started just like looking at that, and then I decided I was like, oh, actually I can like turn this into like a graph, like this could be like a chart. And so I did that, and because I made the layout of my book in InDesign, so when I was doing it, I was trying to figure out what to put on the blue pages, and I thought that would be a good idea.
That was dope. In the comments again, my mom said, are you still suffering from depression? And then Keith said, shout out to Mama Gates. She know what's up. You know what I'm going to do? I've been asking my mom and my dad to come on this show. Well, more so my dad. My mom too. And I'm going to bring Keith. so y'all can talk, because that's going to be a dope conversation since you guys love Keith so much. I'm going to bring Keith because I honestly do respect Keith's position when it comes to philosophy and religion. I don't agree with everything, but I do respect his opinion, and that's what I do. I bring people in to have conversations. My parents are ministers, and Keith is Keith. So bringing them, because most times, most of the pastors that I know wouldn't sit down. More so maybe because they don't have a platform to do it on, to come and talk to someone that is not in the church but just does have a view of God. And Keith actually was raised in the church, I believe, but he took his own route. And it's not like he's just this big bad person, but he just has a more philosophical view on religion and things. So we're going to try and get that together with Keith, my mom, and my dad. I think I'm going to have to bring somebody else in here to balance it out. But I was thinking Dre, but that's not going to work. Because Dre has similar views with Keith, but that might be a little much. Yeah, so we're going to do that. So for those of you guys that are listening and looking in the comments, I don't even think any of them are listening now because they're not commenting. But for those of you guys that are in the comments and have saw like the conversation that has taken place between Keith and I, or my mom and I, or even know my parents or just know Keith. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to make sure that I'm going to make sure that happens in the near future. But we're going to get them on and make sure they come in and share with you guys, because I think a lot of people are going to need that crossover. So let's do it. Yeah, we're going to make that happen. But back to this, the number of times that you cried. And it's crazy because you're in LA, and since I've been traveling, I've realized, being in New York for different seasons. The only season that I have not been to New York is for winter, but I did get to spend some of the winter in DC. But they dramatically change. Yeah, like even just the energy of people walking around changes with the seasons. And I often said, like, we don't get that in LA because we don't have dramatic seasons. Like, the sun is still out even though it's cold. Yeah. We didn't see the sun that much in DC. And just having to be bundled up like that, I'm like, we would come in, and it's snows outside or it's raining. We would come in and like literally spend like 5 minutes taking off layers. Yeah. And then it will be like, oh, do you have all the juice? Do you have like all the snacks? Like, because we don't want to go out. And it's like, if you have to get up and go out, you're like, oh, another 10 minutes to put on everything. But out here, we're like, oh, just throw on a jacket and whatever, get out. But I didn't think we like went through those emotions as drastically as people that were in states or places that have more severe like weather conditions. So that was a cool thing to see this and to see that like it's journaled and that you've paid attention to your emotions. I think that's like super dope. My mom said, have a blessed day. Love y'all. Does that mean coming on the show? Or is that your exit? I don't know. But yeah, I'm like blacking out right now. I was going through it. Okay, one of my favorites. The poem for the absent father. Oh yeah. When I was sitting in the front row, because I didn't know that was a poem that you put. When I was sitting in the front row, I was like, oh, like you went there, like for real. And for me, I have if anybody saw one of my posts this week, I was very frustrated this week. Just with the school system, with how our children have been dealt with the fact that like our children are so far behind. The reason for this was I have a fourth grader who's 10, and she probably like should not have been let out of kindergarten, and that's how far behind that she is. So when I went to DC, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna get her a book. I got her a book that I thought was like doable, and or readable, I should say. And the title was Who is Coretta Scott King? I'm like, all right, read the title. I'm thinking like, all right, she's going to say who's Coretta Scott King, like anybody would. And in my head, I'm like, we're going to get through a few pages, not a chapter, because she's not that up to there, but I didn't know how far back she was. So we didn't get past the title.
Wow.
She couldn't read Coretta, and she couldn't read Scott. And I sat there, and please don't think I took my frustration out on her. I know where to place my frustration. Parents, community, school system. Why is there a fourth grader that should not have been let out of kindergarten in my class now? Why is she put, I understand why God may have placed her here, but systematically, why is she here? Yeah. Why have you guys pushed her? Why did you guys let her pass first grade? Why did you guys let her pass second grade? Why did you guys let her pass third grade? And parents, do you not care enough to just see if your child can read? To just see. Just to see. Like, just to see if they can read and give them books. We couldn't get past the title of Coretta Scott King. We couldn't get past the title. And I was just so frustrated. I was just like, she got it by the end of the day. But it was just one of those things where I was just like, why are our children being failed so much? And this is a part of it. Like, to be frustrated. And granted, I had my father and my mother, and they're still married and, grew up in a 2-parent home. But a lot of times I felt like I couldn't speak to this. Like I couldn't be upset about it because I had my father. And a lot of times I don't speak up on it. I just speak about like what I can help. But to see that you spoke up about it, it's like, yeah, we can talk about it because it affects us. I'm very much so affected by the fact that there are absentee mothers. There are absentee fathers in our community. But yeah, when did you feel like you could talk about an absent father? Because you have your father in your life.
Yeah, my father's been in my life my entire life. But I kind of wrote that from a space of being, of loving someone who didn't have a father. And just seeing the effects that had on them, and like seeing the pain, that they might not even know is there, or they're not even ready to approach, or they don't even have an outlet to let it out, and just seeing how like that really affects how they move through life. Like it affects how they communicate, it affects the way they love, it affects the way they, form friendships. Like it affects every foundation of being a human being. And I remember like being with someone who didn't have a father, and I just was wondering before writing that poem. I just wondered like who would this man be if he had like a loving father in his life? Like what would be dynamically different? And that poem came about, and I was kind of angry. It was an anger poem, like, and it was out of loving him. I'm like, this man is amazing. Like, how dare you not want to be in his life? Like, who are you to throw this? It's like, why would you do know? So that's where that poem came from.
Yeah, and even looking at it, because I've heard a few, listened to a few podcasts, and I was listening to a podcast that a few Black women did on Father's Day, and it rubbed me the wrong way. But I was like, I gave it a chance because it was Father's Day, but I don't think any of them had their fathers. Wow. And it was one of those things where they were just like, ain't no good fathers out here, like whatever. They were like, well, we can't say that, but like it was a bashful episode. And I was like, excuse me, one, I think there are two different pains. A son not having his father, and a daughter not having her father. And to see a little girl and to be like, that's what she was saying, was basically, how could my dad, see me as a child and not want to be a part, or to basically look at me as like I was okay, like I didn't need his support, like I was basically grown already, and you didn't need to be around. Like, how could that happen? And I have like a very special place in my heart for Black males. And I believe it's because my father, and then I have 3 younger brothers. So it's just kind of like, that's what I was like groomed to nurture and care for. But the hurt that like a boy has to go through, like I have no image of self at all. And they're supposed to be there to help you grow into who you are. And I feel like there's a lot of rage and us black women, a lot of us are on this like healing tip, and we're trying to like heal the traumas and stuff. But I don't think a lot of black men have gotten to that point. I think it's just, I'm good, I'm here, and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
What he did is not going to affect me.
There's
I'm
no
going to be a
space
good
for it.
father. But you don't heal the traumas. And I'm just like, as I look, and I'm just like, because one, for the boys, when I see them and they don't have a father, because they won't show it all the time, but there are moments when they do get down and they don't know what it's about. But I'm just like, you don't even, like, there's no father to come and like let you know that it's good.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. And my heart hurts for that.
Yeah, mine too.
It really does hurt for the fact that like our black boys don't know how to like be emotional or just deal with self in a way that I feel like females do. And I feel like there's a masculine way to do it. And of course some males have, but it just hurts really just to know that there are somebody's calling. I think it's Keith. Hello.
Yo, what's up? It's Keith.
It is Keith. Hey Keith. Welcome to the Initiative Radio Show.
Yeah, what's up, man? Hey, I heard you say earlier I've been heavy in the comments. It ain't I've been heavy in the comments. It's just I'm a fan of the show. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy listening. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, but I definitely am enjoying the topic right now on black fathers. You know, and how that had a role into, you know, how that affected young men versus how it affected young women. I think that we never draw the difference from that, and I'm happy to hear you talk about that because I've never heard that conversation be had, actually.
Yeah, I think it's something that we, you know, need to talk about. Like, it is a difference, and I feel like fatherless daughters is something that resonates with people, but when you hear a fatherless son, a lot of people are like, oh, he'll be good, but it's like, it's a whole, like, and they're babies, and that's one thing, like, people are not understanding. These boys are babies. Yes, they're 18 and they're huge and they talk to you like they're crazy, but they're babies. Like, people are living to 70 years old. They're less than 20. They're hurt.
Yeah.
So it's
especially,
just,
I think you're correct. Especially even if you look at our generation, the one that we share, or at least close to, we understand personal responsibility a lot later, and that's just because of the way the society is set up. There's so much more distractions than there's ever been. There's so much more to learn. There's so much more knowledge. So we get, really distracted by so much knowledge and information that we have to attach to and have to learn, which allows us to expand, but it doesn't allow us to focus a lot, And I think in the 80s and early 90s was the big boom of that, and I think that created a lack of personal responsibility, especially for the black man, and not only due to, everything changing with the world, but then, of course, the big target on their back, during that time. So, I think that had an effect on a lot of people and moving forward. And I'm just happy that y'all are having this conversation with black women, helping shift that narrative because it needs to be changed.
Yes, I'm glad that we were able to do that. And shout out to you because we've had a few conversations. I don't remember whose show it was on, but just conversations on a lot of black fathers that are raising the 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds now are very present, at least from what I can see. Yeah. I don't have too many friends that just aren't there. And I know growing up, my older cousins had people around them that weren't seeing their kids. And shout out to you, Keith, because you are very, 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 very present in Peyton's life. And it's something that, we can see. And I know that there are men and fathers out there that are hoping that, or just looking at you and being like, oh, I want to go get my daughter because Keith is always having a good time with Peyton. So, like, let me go get my daughter. Let me go spend time. So, like, or let me go get my son. So, like, there are kids that are, I will say, are being affected positively with their fathers being around because their fathers are like your friends or your homies and they're seeing you. So thank you for being just that father to Peyton, and then also just like an example in the community because people are definitely like looking at you.
I appreciate that. I definitely want to do the action out real quick. I agree with you. People do need to, as fathers and men, period, need to go pick up their kids and spend time. But let's go a step further. They need to raise their child. It's a big difference.
Right.
You know, I always try to tell people, like, I'm raising my daughter. I'm not taking care of her. I'm not white. I'm not doing any of that. You know, I'm raising her, you know.
Right.
And that's a big difference, you know, and that's beyond time, you know, like actually teaching life lessons, whether it be, who, you know, what are you zeroed in focused on? Are you helping her, you know, with reading, math, you know, logic, whatever? Are you raising her, creating a perspective for her, you know?
Right.
Versus letting the world just create the, you know, the perspective and you just making sure they don't kill themselves and eat. That's, like, not cool.
Yes, that's
you know,
very true.
But yeah, so, you know, I just want to put that out there for all those who listen. You know, it's about raising the child, not taking care of it. Just because you feed it, clothe it, and make sure it get to school, that ain't it. You know what I'm saying? There's so much more to that, especially with so much information being available. So, yeah, but thank y'all, man. I'm still listening. I have to call in and chime in. I love it. I love it.
We appreciate it. That's Keith. He is the mastermind behind the Good News Radio, so it's always a dope thing to have him come in or just tune in and chop it up with us. But we appreciate you and your crazy mindset sometimes.
Of course, man. Sometimes you gotta be a little crazy to be king. But
I know it keeps the relationship going. But yeah, all right. Thank you, Keith. But yeah, that's cool. That's a real black father.
That was amazing.
Yeah, so he's dope. And it reminds me of how my dad was with me because I was thinking I got to see 4 business owners and I didn't realize that until like this week. My mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandmother. So my grandfather and my granddad, they're the same person. My grandfather and my father, they both have had trucking businesses. My dad doesn't have his anymore, but my granddad still does. And my mother has her own daycare, and my grandmother has her own preschool. And then also with the church, they own the church and stuff. So I was listening to my granddad on the phone this week, and I've always loved listening to him. What he does is, on his flip phone, he calls his workers, and he tells them what routes to take. And, you know, if he has to make a switch, he makes a switch. So they call him, the yards call him, and they tell him what they need or whatever. And he has about 2 or 3 trucks, and he has them, you know, go out. And he picks his assignment or whatever, too. And they go out, and they do the work. And he does it almost every day. He gets on the phone, and he makes the calls. Or he'll tell them what, you know, loads to take for the week or whatever. And I was like, dang, I saw 4 business owners. And I went to my grandmother's preschool. And sometimes I was up with her. She would get up at 4 in the morning, and she would be at the preschool from 6 to 6. And it's still running now. And then my mother, she has a daycare. The daycare is from 6 to 6 too, but she would get up, run it. She would make me do paperwork for her. She would make me, like, you know, watch the kids sometimes. I would have to make lunch for the kids sometimes. And I saw that. I saw my dad, when he owned his trucks, he would go to the yard on Saturdays, and he would go washing, and he would take me with him, and I would just be playing. But I saw them, like, take pride in what they were doing. And even when, you know, there were days off, they still were working and trying to make sure, like, things went well. And I realized about my dad, how I saw my dad up in, like, a few years ago. And my mom, I realized how much I saw her pour into her business, like, a few years ago too. But I just literally this week was like, dang, I saw 4 people. Yeah, and I'm still, you know, seeing 4 people take care of their business. So I'm like, you know, that if I'm their offspring, that only means that I'm supposed to, you know, like, own and do my own thing too. So
those are good examples to follow.
Yeah, so I think he's doing that because Peyton is always in the studio. Peyton is always around him when he's at work and stuff. So it reminds me of, like, how I was with my dad. So shout out to that. If you're just now listening, it's your girl Jasmine Renee. I'm in the studio with SHAKIRAH Peterson, who is the author of The Letting of a Little Water. So it came from a quote. Tell us about, I guess, what space you were in when you saw the quote, and what made you want to just use The Letting of a Little Water.
Yeah. So The Letting of a Little Water is from a quote by this guy named Christopher Morley. And the quote is, "Heavy hearts, like heavy clouds in the sky, are best relieved by the letting of a little water." And I remember when I saw that quote, I was like crying. I was just always crying because I was sad. So I was always crying. And I remember I just like ran across that quote on Tumblr or something. And I was like, oh, like, it's okay for me to cry.
Yeah.
Like this is natural. Like,
yeah.
I like the idea of like comparing myself to a cloud. Like, wow, clouds are crying all the time.
Right.
Like, if clouds can cry, like,
Right.
it's okay for me to do so.
Yeah.
And I remember I was trying to find a title for my book, and I was just like going through my phone looking at stuff, and I had saw that quote, and I brought it up to Hiram, my professor at CLI, and he was like, "The legend of a little water, that's catchy." And I was like, okay, cool.
It is.
So we went with that.
That's dope. I love, if you are following on Instagram, I posted a picture of the book on both the Initiativ page and my page, and it's like clouds, and the clouds are like red, and the writing is in blue, and it's a very like peaceful cover, and it just makes you inquire, like, the letting of a little water, like, you know, what does that mean, or what is really going on? So most times when we had Kamari on, there was something definitely that you could buy after reading, but for those of you guys that are into the conversation, this is definitely a book that you guys should like invest in and go and get it. The link is in her bio, I'm sure. And it's on Amazon.
I don't think it's up on Amazon yet, but it is on World Stage Press.
World Stage Press. Okay, so go to worldstagepress.org and you'll be able to purchase the book. It is something that I think you should, because Shakira's a part of our community. She's in LA. And it's her very first book, and it's pretty dope.
Thank you.
You wrote a poem. Hold on, this shit. Another one of those orange to pizzas. I'm like, okay, yep, she is. Let me read about this, because I know she's just talking about herself. So I'm reading it, and you start describing, like, boo-boo. And I'm like, Shakira.
Oh, I had to.
And yeah, I'm just like, okay. All right. And then, like, the toilet reference and stuff. And then I look over and I'm like, okay, Shakira, where are you going with this? And then at the end, you're like, but I'm learning, like, to love myself, basically. And I want to make that, like, a habit or whatever. But I think a lot, like, your personification is, like, so grand in a way that it's, like, nothing like you've seen before. And it's crazy. I think, like, you know, the inner girls in us connect, because I've always been one to, like, you know, not when I write to personify things, but I personify things just in my atmosphere. Yeah. Even when I was a girl, it was always, this was that, this is that. And they didn't have names, but it was just, oh, you don't want to be in the sun, so let me move you over.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
You know, just stuff like that. Like, oh, like, even with my teddy bears, like, I used to feel like they get, like, and if I didn't sleep with this one, it was jealous, so let me, like, switch this one out. And my goodness, it was
I used
just
to, like, line them up, like, oh no, you're best friends with this one. Let me
right. Yeah. So it was just one of those things, or like, oh, this one didn't get it in my play card today, so let me like do that. But like, so to see this and like to read it, it just really like connects. But for this I'm the Shit poem, first of all, where did the title come, after or before?
The title came before. I had that's the last poem. That's actually the last poem I wrote.
Okay.
For the book, and I added it to the book last minute. But that was just a point where I was just like in a different space. Like I wasn't sad no more. Like, you know, I wasn't like, I'm like, you know, I'm the shit, and like I'm gonna keep saying it until it comes true. Right. But I have a Polaroid in the book, and it's a Polaroid of like a golden statue, like a women's like like a golden statue.
And where was this taken?
That's at UCLA in their sculpture garden. Okay. And I remember looking at that like, damn, like, that's me. Like, that could be me. Like, I'm bad, I'm bold, like, I'm golden. Like, and then I was like, I'm the shit. And then I wrote that as the title. And then, of course, I had to do, like, a toilet reference. Cause, you know, I had to. But, yeah, that's where that came from. I just remember seeing that statue and being like, you know what? It's time for me to change my perspective on me. Like, I'm not like this. I'm not down and out no more. Like, I'm the shit.
I love it. I love it so much. But yeah, that, like, just a lot of your poems. This is another blue page that I wanted to ask about, because it's the Venn diagram of being misunderstood. So you see, like rude, bitter, bad mood on one, and then in the middle, well, I should read the other side. The right side is like depressed and anxious, and then in the middle, I'm guessing those are the things that actually the actions that you're producing because of the mix. Okay, so it's like, I don't want to go quiet, disappearing for weeks, not returning calls, leave me alone, not returning texts. So it just seems like you studied yourself.
Yeah, I spent
a lot.
I spent a lot of time alone and a lot of time with myself. So one thing I am proud about, like throughout my whole journey of just being me, is that I know myself very well. Like, I know everything about me. Like, there's nobody who can tell me more about me, because I literally took the time to get to know myself. And sometimes, like, I feel like, you know how we were talking, like, everything happens for a reason. Like, I don't even look at my depression as like a bad thing anymore, or like a bad stage. Like, I feel like it was a part of my growth. Like, I wouldn't be the woman I am today if I didn't go through that. And I feel like me going through that, me being down, I really took the time to get to know myself, and I birthed a book out of it. Like, that whole book came from just me learning me. So,
and that's important. Yeah. I think it's really important to know yourself and to get to a point where you're like, this helped me get here. And I don't feel like you get to your healing unless you know what that negative feeling brought to you.
Exactly.
Or, can identify a positive with it. I think, okay, this is one of my favorites because I'm daddy's girl. And then, yes, your dad on the documentary. So shout out to, I'm going to mess this up.
RJ thing?
Yes.
Motivated Inc.
Motivated Inc. I was like, Inc. Shout out to Motivated Inc. RJ's usually listening, but maybe he'll go and play it back. But shout out to RJ. I had posted, I was like, my friends are dope. Like, I really have some good people in my circle, because RJ had produced your video.
Yeah.
The event was for you. Kamari had hosted and had a hand in
editing.
Yeah. And then Brittany performed. Milena performed. Did I know anybody else that performed? I don't think so. And
did RJ perform?
RJ did perform, yes, and RJ performed, and I was just like, wow. Like, to be here. And it's funny because I went to Unplug when I first met Brittany. So the Tuesday before we had went up to Joshua Tree, and she was like, did you come? You came by yourself? And I was like, no, I have friends. Like, I knew my friends would be here, and my cousin was there too. So I came by myself. And I'm like, it was so cool because of course I came with you guys, but this was your event. And Kamari, of course, had to be there. But I technically, like, came by myself to that event, and just to be there and be like, yo, I know Kamari, I know RJ.
Like, I know some cool people.
Yeah, and like RJ's name is up as the producer. It's your book release. Yeah. Kamari is producing, and like, they gave so much praise to Kamari. And then, like, just to be, because you go places and like, imagine hearing how many, because they mentioned Joshua Tree a few times.
Yeah.
So imagine like being there and like wondering like, dang, what is that?
Yeah, like not knowing anybody in
but
there.
To like, no, like, I was there. I know. Like, exactly, it was so cool. Yeah, like, it was just cool to be a part of that. Yeah. And then like, just to have the moment with you, and just to be able to like sit in front, and not for people to be like, oh my God, like, look at them, but just to be like, wow, like a sisterhood. Yeah. Just to be like, how beautiful is that? Like, Black women just having a sisterhood,
Exactly, yeah.
And it was just so seamless.
So beautiful.
Yeah, so that was cool. And in the documentary that Motivated Inc. had produced for you, your father had told a story. And I remember telling my boyfriend, I was just like, wow, like, that's so dope. And he had told the story about, I guess he was getting ready to leave, and it was just a bad time, and you had laid like at the door.
Yeah, I was a little girl, yeah.
And you were just like, no, Daddy, don't go, whatever. And I'm just like, wow, like, who are you? Like, what is this? Like, wow. I'm just like, my God, like, wow.
Yeah, I remember now that he brought it up, but I had wrote the poem and everything before I even talked to him about it. But now that he brought it up and I look back, I do remember him like being like, "Fuck this, I'm out." Like, like a divorce. Like, I'm done. And I remember just like running to the door, like blocking it, like, "No, Daddy, please!" Like holding onto his leg. He's trying to leave. Like, don't go. And he didn't leave. And that's where that poem came from. Like, in my heart, I guess I knew that situation was there, but that poem just came from me, just like thanking him.
Because your heart,
like my
grew
heart
from
just
that.
knew, and I just remember thanking him, like, thank you for just fighting. Because like people get divorced all the time, and
right.
I'm not saying that divorce is bad and like some people should divorce. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that in my situation, I'm glad that my father and my mother decided to stick it out.
Right.
And in that poem, I was just like saying how blessed am I to have a father,
that fought
just
for
to have
you.
a father in general.
Yeah.
And then to have one who fought and to have one who raised me. Like
that was like
that's
a super
after,
dope
but just to
line.
have a father in general,
Yeah.
like yeah.
That, yeah,
That's one of my favorite
to have a
poems.
father that fought to raise you. I think that's, I mean, because in being daughters of black men, you have to understand, like, society, and you have to understand, like, how things are set up against them. And I think being older, I've appreciated my father more because I'm like, he really beat the odds. He really beat the odds. My father did not get a college education, but he had a house by like 28, a 5-bedroom, and he's been supporting my mom. He's been supporting us. He put me through private school for elementary, and he's done that. And he still is like, you know, doing better than a lot of people that I do know with college degrees that are his age and stuff. So I've always looked at him and been like, you don't even understand. Like, you've really defied the odds a lot. And he's just definitely like taking care of us in a way, and has really just, and I don't even think he really understands it, but I know, you know, the whole thing, like, he has friends that have passed away for a long time. I've seen his friends, you know, him going to funerals because of his friends. But he has, and now he just got his license to be an elder, so like, he's definitely defying odds. And I'm just like, as a black man, to go out there and to not be discouraged. How easy is it to be discouraged in this, you know, society as a black man? And like, I think that's something like we as like daughters really have a soft spot and an understanding for the ones like our fathers that were in our lives. And it's just like, you know, we can understand things a little differently. But I definitely enjoyed this poem. How my daddy fought the devil and won. That's like where did that title come from? Was it after or before?
It was probably after. I usually write the poem and then try to
the title after. Yeah, I think it was like when you said it, it was like I think everybody was kind of like, whoa, like it was like shock factor after shock factor. Like it was just the whole time, and you just stopped saying whoa. You're just like, okay, I'm just gonna be amazed, all like consistently amazed the whole time. But it was cool to see them there. Like I said, you know, seeing your dad before, and I don't know if it's just energy, but I could literally sense he was just like, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, you know, we're just gonna go and support Shakira, and then to see his emotion, like even when you asked him to stand up, like to see him then, and then after the whole thing, he was just so like happy. To just see everything. What's up, RJ the Poet? We were just talking about you. He said, I still need my copy waiting on the next shipment. Yeah, you have to get it. We were just talking about you, and I was saying how proud I was to be in the building with people that are friends of mine that had produced great things, and to see your name on the screen was really a special moment for me, for you to have like produced that for Shakira, and for the video to be like what it was. It was just like, wow, just to get that. It was like, and then your mother, I'm like, let me see if I can remember some things that she said, but it was just like, to hear her talk about like your friendship and like how dear you are to her, and like just how that has grown, and just to hear your father like talk about that story, like I said, and then just to see you guys together, and to like understand like, she came from them, so of course Shakira. Like it was just one of those things. So I so appreciated being in the building, and before I met you, I was planning on going. It was like one of those things where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go, but then like I said, I had that flight, so it was just like, you know, but I'm because that was something like, I think if you missed it, you should be mad. And I don't want to be like, oh, you suck if you missed it, but it was just such an experience. It was such an experience, and to know you and to have grown to know you, and in the short amount of time, and then just to see it, and to not be like like, I think I told you, I was just like, I just felt like I understood what you were talking about, or like my heart was like feeling the same way that you felt in those moments. And it was just a dope event. It was really dope. Everybody that went up was just like, was good.
Yeah, they were great.
It wasn't long. Like, it was just
it was just like straight through the
yeah,
point.
and I loved it. RJ said, my heart weeps with joy. Thank you. It was an honor. Facts. Incredible experience. Yes. So
all of that.
yes, make sure you guys, there were a few other things. Make sure you guys get this book. It is something to definitely just have, like, to have an experience. I was about to say a wedding vow. And then I said to have an experience. But yeah, I think there was another one that I wanted to ask you about. It was on a blue page. I think it was like the social experiment or something.
Oh yeah, the social network or something.
Yes,
I think it's a social network.
Is it in the front? No, it's not in the front. It's like in the middle. Oh, it is. Oh, we gotta talk about that one too. Okay, so explain this. Social network, number of friends. Okay, I get it. And I got it when I saw it the first time, but it took me like looking at it again. Okay. So it's the number of friends versus years of depression.
Yeah.
Year 1, friends are high. Years of depression. Wait. Am I reading this wrong? So this is number of friends, years of depression, year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3. So
before depression, it was high.
It was high. But as you've been going through depression,
they dropped
It
dramatically.
dropped. So then how has the depression been affected by it?
It kind of goes back to like that Venn diagram that I put where like before I even had a word for what I was depressed and didn't know. Like, I didn't know I was depressed. I didn't know I had anxiety. I just knew I was sad and I didn't want to go outside and I didn't want to hang out with you and I didn't want to text you back and I just don't want to. Like, that was just my thing. I was just like, no, I don't want to go. Leave me alone. Close my door. And I guess like my lack of communication and like their lack of misunderstanding and my lack of misunderstanding myself, like, just put like a wall around me for years where I just like, you know, I just kind of like forced myself into this lowly, like soulless place. But like I said, in the same token, it was where I got to know myself. So I appreciate that space now, but I definitely lost a lot of friends. And I think like, actually, I would say like this month is where I'm like, I just started being more social. Like, I've met you guys, like, you know, I went to Joshua Tree. I met you guys. Like, I'm just more like I wasn't on social media for like 2 years. So, you know, I like really just dropped like off the face of the earth. And so I just made that grab to show like depression can do that. It can isolate you.
Right. And then what year would you say is year 0?
Year 0 would probably be like, I want to say like 2014, 2015. Yeah. I always say 2015 because I think that's when I had a name for it. That's when I figured out what was wrong with me.
Okay.
But I wasn't getting help though. I just like self-diagnosed myself, and then 2017 I got help, and then I got out of it. I wouldn't say like I'm not suffering from depression. I am like surviving with it though. Like, I learned how to manage it, and you know, I took the steps and made the changes to learn how to live with it. So I'd like to say like I'm surviving with depression. But yeah, I think this year is going to be like the year where I'm like fully like, I got this.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. And then you did go and get diagnosed in 2017, you said?
Yeah, I went to therapy.
Okay.
I went to a therapist first, and then she suggested, you know, I'm not even going to go. I went to therapy first, and then she suggested, like, you know, maybe start working out more and, like, eat healthier. Like, the basics.
Right.
I tried that. It didn't work. I went back again, and this time I saw a psychiatrist. So a therapist is one you talk to. A psychiatrist is the one that can subscribe you medication. And I remember he subscribed me Lexapro, a very low dosage. And I remember having it, like, I went to get it, and I remember, like, looking at it like, I want to be on no medicine. Like, and that's, like, a stigma. That's another stigma.
Yeah.
is that people think like when you're on medication you're weak, or you're weak because you need this medication to get through your day. But in all honesty, Lexapro literally saved my life. So when I talk to anybody and they tell me like, nah, I don't like to go to therapy because I don't want no pills, I'm just like, it's gonna help you though. Like when I don't take my pills, I'm a completely different person. Like if you saw me, if I didn't take my pills for like 2 weeks or something, and you came to my house, and you would be like, who is this? Like I just like my brain. They say that the Lexapro helps with your with the molecules in your brain. So there's like a serotonin molecule, and that's the one that like uplifts you. That's like the happy molecule. And my brain doesn't produce enough of it. That's literally the scientific reason of depression. Like my brain does not produce enough serotonin, and so everything, I'm just down. Like everything just drops dramatically. Like I just like everything makes me sad. But when I'm on it, it kind of like helps that molecule produce more. And so it kind of makes me normal. Like I feel like you, like I'm just like, oh, like, okay, I'm cool.
Right.
But there are some days where I skip it, or I don't know. Sometimes I stop taking it because it affects my creative process. That's a whole other story. Like I write differently when I'm on, when I'm off. I write better when I'm off, when I'm sad. So I'm trying to teach myself how to write from like a happier space, which is why I haven't been writing more. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But, yeah, so I tell people all the time, like, you know, you can't say that medication is awful if you've never even tried it. Like, I think I went to see a psychiatrist, and I told him, like, I don't want to be on that then. Like, and he looked at me and he was like, have you tried it? And I was like, no, but I just know, like, that's not what I want. Like, and so he told me to try it, and like within like a month or so, I was just like out of it. Like, I was just not depressed, and I was thinking like, damn, like this whole time, like this small little pill, you know. So, yeah. I don't know where that came from or where it started. But.
Well, we talked about this.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so now that I'm on medication and I feel like more myself, I'm more able to be myself around other people. Like I think I was depressed, and so I knew I wasn't myself, and I was embarrassed to show that person to people. Like I don't want you to see this part of me. Like I don't want you to see. But now I'm like comfortable in my skin. Like I know that I'm okay now, and so I'm willing to like introduce this new person to people. So I feel like that chart is gonna like skew differently now. Like I think I'm gonna come back up when I was down before.
Yeah, I think that's for anyone that's listening. I think, or if you know anybody that's maybe like going through similar things or whatever, or even just to share the information. I think sharing the information is vital. But because I often come from my perspective, not from me personally taking pills, but from the educational standpoint, is we have little black kids that have been drugged up, and it's so easy to up their dosage. They basically give us, the teachers or whoever's dealing with them, a sheet of paper, and you have to answer questions. It's probably about like a packet. You have to answer questions. Is Johnny standing up in class? Is he working? When he finishes his work, is he talking? Does he talk a lot? Is he disruptive? But it leaves no room for an explanation. Like, okay, well, he sat down for me and learned it. He got it quick, and he got bored. The rest of the kids weren't learning it as fastly as he was, so that's why he was up and stuff. So I remember my first year, they upped the dosage for one of my kids, and I literally was like that. Like all it took was like some teachers writing on a piece of paper, and y'all drugged this kid up more. So I saw that, and then I had another kid who he was in 7th grade, and he literally was like slumped over when he was on medication, and they kept upping the dosage because he would act like he took the pill. So you know, you get out the car, oh, here, take your pill or whatever, and you think he's taking 10%. It. So they had found, and of course he wasn't being smart and throwing it away. He was putting him in a sock. They found the sock, so they were like, we don't even know if we've been gauging him correctly because he has all of these pills and they've been upping the dosage. So that was a thing where it was just really like disheartening But then to hear like a story like you, like I've never heard a story like that where it's like, the scientific reason. And granted, no, I still don't agree with them doing that because I feel like a lot of times our boys are misdiagnosed. A lot of times people don't know how to deal with them. But I think that is very helpful to hear that perspective. And I think a lot of people do need to hear that there's a scientific reason. But you still have to do work. Like we were talking about before, you still have to do your work. And even how you said, like, I'm trying to write from a happier perspective now. Like, it's not just I'm just gonna write when I'm on this. Let me try and bring that into my life when I'm not on it. I think that's very good. Kirsten, do you want to get on the mic? Because you type. Kirsten is
I sound ugly this morning.
No, you don't.
I do. What's
can you
up,
hear
guys?
yourself?
Yes, I can hear myself.
Okay, Kirsten is here being extra and commenting in the comment box when she's sitting in front of a mic.
Okay, no, I was. You said something that triggered me. I actually have a cousin that works with children. And she does a lot of one-on-one with them. One thing I don't appreciate is, like you said, when you guys have to fill out all those papers on the students, how they're so quick to diagnose specifically Black children as having autism, or they put them on the spectrum. For instance, if there's a child, she had a child that would do like masturbation stuff in class. Maybe there's something going on at home and he doesn't have autism. Maybe you should check to make sure that he's not being abused at home or seeing something or someone doing something to him, or taking that extra time just to, like sometimes kids are slow learners. It doesn't mean that they have autism, you know? So I just don't like that they have all of these things in place to help others that are not of melanin. They have all these different things to do before they prescribe them an actual medication, where it be learning or depression or whatever the case may be. And that is just something that has always bothered me. I think you guys talked about it earlier. I do think that Black people need therapy more than other people.
It's facts.
But I don't think that medication is always the answer. Sometimes it is necessary, but I don't think that is always the answer. And like you said, it starts with the children. I don't think it's right that they just mark something on a paper and the parents don't do their research and just say, oh, okay, well now I'm going to treat my child as such. Now they're treating them like something is wrong with them, which even worsens the problem. So that's something that's very bothersome to me. So I think it's very important that although it's just you, I'm pretty sure there are other teachers like you, but it starts with at least one to spread the word or to set an example. So I appreciate you doing that, especially for the kids that are coming up. It's very important.
And I'm in, like, you guys know, whatever position or space that I'm in, I always find a way to intellectualize it and tell you guys about how I advocate for that. So this school year in August, I started off in special education and didn't think that I would need to advocate. Didn't think that I would find something that was being done against them. And of course, I should have known, but I just didn't think that. I didn't think that like our Black boys were just, our Black girls were just like, just not being dealt with. And a lot of times when I talk about the general ed that I was dealing with, it was not in the same classroom. When I talked about, children that were of different races getting more, it was at a different school. I'm seeing it in the same classroom. So I'm seeing you have Black girls that are diagnosed with autism, that are, the language that they use with them is like you're bad or something, compared to like a Hispanic child or something, or a white child. They get more leniency even at the age of 3. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, even with the student that I'm dealing with now, I'm just like, so she came from Montebello. Montebello is predominantly Mexican. So they pushed this little Black baby through for all this time. And I wonder if there was even one Black, maybe there wasn't a Black teacher that she came across. There may have been one on campus, but like, how do you see this? And you just push her through. And it didn't have to, and the thing is, it doesn't have to always be that. She doesn't have to be 4 grades behind her grade level. She doesn't, that is in no way, shape, or form, because I'm sitting here doing work with her and getting her caught up because I'm just paying attention to her. So it's one of those things where it's just like, people ask a lot. And I think I had a conversation with you about it, I'm not sure, but you know, people come to me and more, it has stopped more so now because I've been able to intellectualize it and explain to people why I am the way that I am when it comes to black people. But a few people have came and made it seem as if it's a racist thing or as if it's a hateful thing. But I go, when you sit in front of black students all the time, you sit in front of them, we'll say black and brown, you sit in front of them all the time, and then you go see kids that are in Marina Del Rey, that are by the beach, by the water, and they're in charter schools, so it's not a private school, so it's not that the parents are paying, but they're in these schools, and the setup is so different. They don't expect even the least bit of success from our students. They don't expect it. When you go there, like I've said this before, I went to a school, predominantly white students, and they're learning German. The same way that our kids are learning math and English, it is embedded into their curriculum to learn German. They have kindergartners who are learning the alphabet in English and the alphabet in German. They're silent reading. They have to read German books. And this is 15 minutes from where I'm at or where I was at. And it's like, you'll be upset. You would be very upset, and you would fight as hard as you could, and you would say whatever it is that you need to say to the people that you need to say it to advocate for our kids. Because when I tell you our kids are not being done a justice, and it's not even just white people, it's black people that are in power too, that are just not expecting. There's black people that live in these white areas that come here to govern our schools, and they just don't expect greatness. And for me, why it makes me so mad is because if anybody has heard of Wilders is a school in Inglewood. It's a charter school that was started off by Mr. and Mrs. Wilders. Mr. Wilders passed away, but it's off of La Brea. It's a charter school. I used to work at ISEF. ISEF is off of Manchester and Spruce, and Wilders is off of La Brea. Same kids, same exact kids. They're cousins. They play on the same football team. Wilders is predominantly black. The owner still comes to the school. The owner is black. I think they pledge like Delta or something. And they come into the school. When they come into the school, the kids are like, hey, Mrs. Wilders. They know who she is. She expects greatness. There's a black principal, predominantly black teachers. Most of those teachers have been there for over 15 years. And some of them have had the parents of the students that are there now. They expect greatness from these kids. And the kids, when I go in there, they're like, oh, well, we know how to do our science. We know how to do this. Like, you don't have to tell us, Miss Gates. We already know what to do. And they're telling everybody else. When they're reading, our girls, yes, they have attitudes and stuff. They're loud. They're reading with fluency. And it's like, I don't even want to tell you to be quiet because you're reading so well. When I go to the school that's 2 minutes away, that's the CEO is a white person. And the kids don't know who that is, and majority of it's a diverse group of teachers. They're not expected to do great, but it's the same kids. And when I tell you, they are siblings of these kids, they are cousins of these kids. They play on the same teams, and the attitudes are there, yes, but there are people that understand who that is, that were those kids at one point in time, and they check them the same way that they were checked. And there's just such a difference when you have people that know what they're capable of. People just think that our kids are not capable, and it's like so not true.
The difference with some of the schools is that some are business transactions and others are really to make a difference
in the community.
And the reason I say some are business transactions is because, like you said, a lot of people don't know who the owner of the school is or whatever the case may be. And everything is just, do this. It's almost like a jail, but for children.
Exactly.
Like some schools are like that. It's like jail, but for children.
Right.
And I've witnessed a difference because for me, coming from all the schools that I went to, and then I go to Pedro my senior year, it was completely different. First of all, they knew shit I ain't never even learned in school. And I had been in school from 9th to 11th grade. I was like, what the fuck y'all talking about? I don't know nothing about this. Like, you know? And then we had a set of books at school, and we had a set we could take home.
Right.
My school before that, it wasn't
you barely had enough for the class.
You couldn't take a set home. You needed to, and sometimes you needed to share a book because people would mess up the books or they wouldn't get new books or whatever the case. And it's just like for me to just be literally down the hill. All I did was take one main street up the hill to go to San Pedro, and it's completely different. You know what I mean? And some teachers care, and I noticed some teachers care and some teachers don't. They're just there to get their paycheck.
To get the check.
So it's a very sad situation.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. But thank you, Kirsten.
Of course.
For sharing. I really appreciate you coming. I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know, I missed you.
But yes, The Letting of a Little Water. Make sure you guys get the book. Did you want to say anything else, Shakira?
I love you.
I love you too. Yeah, so this is definitely a book that you want to get. I also wanted to, the book that you wrote about your brother is so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
It is so sweet.
I love my brother.
And I'm like, is all of this stuff true? Like, how does she seam all of this together like that? But it's such a beautiful, a beautiful poem. So I'm really, 2 of your brothers were there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's super dope. But yeah, super dope show. Good content.
Good content. Good conversation.
Yes, very good conversation. So if you are listening now, and you should share the link with your people, with your friends.
Definitely.
I'm starving. So
I'm ready to eat.
I'm going to wrap the show up. Thank you guys so much for listening. The takeaway this week, I think, is to learn yourself. I think throughout this whole show, what has been being said is like, you know, the aspect of Shakira like learning herself and being able to produce a work. Yeah. And I think before you do anything that is going to be successful, you have to know yourself, even if it's not producing a book, even if it's doing a business, because I know even as an educator and a coach, I do have to know myself. And granted, I got into it very young, and yes, I have lost my cool a lot of times, but as I'm getting to this place of learning myself, I have to learn like who I am and the fact that some people don't deserve my energy or time, and you have to let people rot where they are. And that's what I've been learning. So even as I'm going into these different places, and I'm just learning, like, you know, you are who you are, and some people don't like that, and that's fine. You can just leave them. But yeah, thank you, Shakira.
Thank you for
coming in. Like I said, The Letting of a Little Water, you can go to worldstagepress.org and you can go cop the book. It is very much so worth like your time and your money and your effort. They're easy read. Hey, Peyton. But yeah, it is a easy read. And what I will say, if you have not, my first article was published. As you guys know, I have been blogging and publishing my own articles for the new Black History Makers, but I was contacted and or actually spotted out somewhere, and someone asked me if I wrote, and I said yeah. So this was in December, so the manifestation of that conversation was published basically this past week, and I wrote about Me Too. I had to come for Me Too. It's a nice piece. I heard it's insightful, so I think you should check it out. But it's called Jasmine Gates Probes the Me Too Not You Movement, and I basically shed some light on that. So if you haven't read it, you definitely should. I'm excited for what's to come, because it's super dope to have somebody like look at your work and think enough of it to put it on their site. I got some really good feedback and some calls that really made me excited, so I can't wait to write the next piece. But I'm super grateful for this opportunity that the Real Urban News has given me to be a writer. I think I'm the youngest writer on the site, so that's always a dope blessing for me. I love being the youngest in the space. But yeah, Keith just walked in and Peyton with his daughter. We were just celebrating him being a dad, and he came in here being a dad with his dad hat on. So yeah, that's it. But thank you so much, Shakira, for blessing the mic. You guys, this is not the end of you guys hearing of Shakira. I
hope not.
Yeah, she'll probably be on in a few weeks. But yeah, so that's that. I'm going to have to pre-record next week. Actually, your girl is booked. I'm speaking next week. So that's a thing. That was also manifested. Someone asked me to come speak, and I'm doing that next week. And I'm excited about it. So you guys will have a show. I will pre-record for you guys. But, you know, I'm out here doing my thing. So you got to respect it. Okay? I'm just kidding. All right. Well, you guys will hear from me on Saturday. It'll be a pre-recorded show, and then I'll be back live the Saturday after that. But have a blessed day. Remember to start to learn yourself and to be very true to who you are, and go get The Letting of a Little Water by Shakira Peterson. It is super dope. And I'm so grateful to know her as my best friend. Okay. Bye.
What's up, man?
Hey.